about your career, about your achievement, and with a lot of robust questions that comes from people that are here. Some of them are entrepreneurs, some of them are business executives, some of them are professionals, some of them are abaqalayo, you know. Some of them khona baqeda ukusubmit proposal, some of them khona baqeda ukusubmit tender. You know, but abanye bayaqala, abanye bayaphambili, abanye basamile, abanye bazoqeda, abanye baku-retirement. But it's a mixed bag. You talk about intergenerational mix. So bakhona. Khona abakhuluma isilungu esinzima, khona abakhuluma isilungu esisi-understandayo. But sonke siphelele la. Siphelele la, ngiyakutshela. Khona abadecodayo makakhuluma ukuthi elomuntu ashaya isilungu, yazi. Like an uncle of mine used to say, yes, umntana uthanda imali, umntana malicious, yes. Yisho lesilungu. Umntana malicious, uthanda imali. Okay, but we're gonna have a good time. You know, I've followed Sizwe Nxasana. He's an incredible businessman, incredible speaker. I can't wait for him to come and challenge us. We'll be taking, before I introduce Chair and the founder of ULP, and I think we all know Babu Morris. He started, it doesn't need no introduction. I think his reputation precedes him. He's the founder of ULP. But before we start, I'm gonna call a lady at the office just for 5 minutes to talk about the program that we're running at Orange Farmer that is anchored by ULP and FPNM CETA. It's a youth empowerment program. We've been running this for the past 4 years, targeting 1,000 young people. Her name is Azande, incredible, charismatic, powerful lady who will be just talking only for 5 minutes. And then before she speaks, we'll then, Theo, already Baba? Okay, before she speaks, and then we'll play a video for a minute. Thank you.
First attempt to lead somebody must be to lead self.
Be that person that says, I'm not too young to make an impact. That's literally it. You know, the one thing we need to become leaders is just to give yourself permission.
If life is a competition, your biggest competition is not your brother, not your sister, it's not your friend, it's not the person on TV whose job you want, it's nobody else but yourself.
40, 50 years ago, Sandton was just a bush. Today it's the richest square mile in Africa, and I believe that each and every individual has their own square mile that they need to go out there and create instead of envying other people's square miles.
The world that we're living in today is changing at an unprecedented rate, but as Africans, often we are at the receiving end of technologies. We don't innovate around our current circumstances.
But if we take it upon ourselves, going into accountability as young people, we have to be accountable for our nation. Forget the government, forget the private sector. Starting at home, how accountable am I for my actions?
And I have decided to use my own personal story to reform somebody who's hiding in their story.
People have a fear of disassociating themselves and letting go. Do you know what I mean? How then do I go cold turkey, or are there steps to disassociate myself from that person and to care more about myself and what I intend to do?
If you've got friends and people around you that's killing your brand, you need to be careful and look and do what I call a brand audit. Check your third body. Look at your image. Just check yourself up and down quickly. Look at your image. What does your second body say about you right now?
When I was born in a garage. But being born in a garage did not make me a car. You start there, but you don't stay there. Don't you ever give up on your
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give Azad a round of applause just for 2 minutes, really, just to talk about what we do in Orange Farm on the 15th of June. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Masisa. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. My name is Azande Radipenya. I am a project head for the Empower Youth Summit at Empower Works, Events and Communications. Thank you so much for giving me just 2 minutes of your time. I'm here to talk about this year's Empower Youth Summit. As Mr. Masiza briefly touched, it's a youth empowerment and leadership development summit that happens annually, and it's our 5th consecutive one this year. It's happening on Saturday, the 15th of June at Orange Farm at the Chris Hani Sports Complex. Now, the objectives of this summit is to empower our delegates, which is going to be mainly youth. I think we're all aware today Stats SA released the unemployment statistics, and they have increased since the 3rd quarter of 2017. So the objectives of this event is we want to see our youth being absorbed into the economy through access of employment opportunities, economic development opportunities, learnerships, and graduate programs. We are targeting unemployed youth, graduates, and distressed youth between the ages of 18 and 35 years old. Now, what's the value add of this summit? What's interesting is that we'll have close to 150 entities invited to the summit. All seaters, local economic development officers will also be invited to present any economic development opportunities that are available for our young people. We'll also invite business associations such as BUSA and BBC. We'll have foundations that are targeting youth-related employment opportunities and programs. Why are we based in Orange Farm? Well, Orange Farm is regarded as one of South Africa's largest informal settlements. The township is located just south of Johannesburg, and the unemployment stats sit at 60% right now. It's very high. It is in this response to these realities that we're hosting the 5th Orange Farm Empower Youth Leadership, Jobs, Opportunities, and Career Entrepreneurship Summit. Mr. Masisa did touch on the fact that ULP is our anchor partner, as well as FPM and CETA. Now, the Empower Youth Summit comes in threefold. I've discussed the summit element. Now, we've also got the Empower Youth newsletter, which is going to be the first publication ever that we're publishing this year. This publication is targeted directly for the youth in the area or in the region, where we'll be publishing employment, career guidance, and economic development opportunities, as well as inspiration and motivational stories, or just highlighting things that are happening in the Vaal that will empower our youth. We'll also have the Masiza Sports Tournament, which is the first one. We're launching it this year as well. What's awesome about this is that the prize is valued at 120,000 Rand, the prize money. So we'll have male soccer players, male soccer teams rather, and female soccer teams, as well as an open netball team. So what we want to do is encourage our youth not only to be focused on the economic development or employment, but also just to get sportsmanship and to gain, to look at other avenues into sports as well. So we're looking at this avenue to give back to them, and hopefully they'll use the money as a resource that will grow them and give back to the community itself. Sorry, I'm going really fast because I only have 2 minutes. So you'll have to excuse me if I'm just whizzing through this presentation. Hoping that I've enticed you. I've really squeezed my presentation really short, but I will be here throughout the evening and at the end of the evening. So if you've got any other questions, and if you'd like to partner with us, or if you'd like to sponsor the event as well, I am available. I'll be sitting right there at the back, and at the end I'm open for conversation if you want to find out more information. If you want to perhaps also be on the panel of speakers, you're more than welcome to. And if you've got any opportunities available for us, I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much for giving me your time, and I'm looking forward to discussing this with you further.
Thank you so much. That was powerful. Thank you so much, Azande. Incredible. A couple of things. Vuste Maguire is not a confirmed speaker. We're proposing, for one of the organizations to find him to be one of the keynotes. So that when you see the image, that's one. Number two, Casper is not performing. We're also asking that if somebody can, because what we're going to do is that we're going to have a newsletter at the summit. Summit, we're targeting 1,000 young people in Fundis, you know that. And then later we're going to have a summit, which is the Masiza tournament. We're funding that from our own pockets. And I'm looking for somebody who will match us, rent for rent. So keep 100,000 from a Malin Powerworks. Instead of keep it now, we're going to have Maliako through your holdings now. Okay? But it's going to be 3 phase. Some of the guys that are there is not confirmed. And I just wanted to put that disclaimer, so you don't think that they are confirmed. Okay. Any support to look at the go-to, if you can make sure that any support, it's a non-financial, it's a financial, but talk to Azande. She heads that and a number of other event properties. But thank you. I'm going to introduce the chair. To those, if it's your first time, here's the process. I introduce the chair. The chair introduced the keynote because I don't have the rights. I'm John the Baptist. I only introduce the main man. The main man introduced the other main man. I'm just John the Baptist. I'll introduce chair, the founder of ULP, been running this for almost 7 to 8 years. We have hosted, I think, close to 70, if not 100 CEOs here. I think most of us, Ubaba Umores Khademe. And then once Ubaba Nxasana is giving us a keynote or a talk, I'll come back, I'll do the Q&A, and then I will also invite the chair to do the vote of thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our chair, Ubaba Umores Khademe. I think we can do better than that. I think we can do much better than that.
Thank you very much. We've just had a very successful, peaceful elections. I like that amen. Because we prayed for them, and it's such a wonderful thing. I was speaking with some people from our continent, and they say, we have something going that is good in this country. We have successful elections, and there is no violence. So I think we should, again, we always pray our national prayer and our national anthem. Why don't we all stand up and pray? That's great. Let me welcome all of us. Wow, we are running out of seats today. Please, let's welcome all that are coming in. All the people that are dignitaries that are here, I'd like to acknowledge you. And it's great to see so many people coming today. This is ULP. Those who do not know ULP, it stands for Unleashing Leadership Potential. And we're very excited to have our good man here, good leader, incredible leader. I've known Sizwe for many, many years, and it's great to see consistent, sustainable growth and success. And that's what we're talking about here at ULP. We're talking about those leaders that are going to make a huge difference. So I'm going to introduce him, and then all the other announcements which I will make them afterwards. And as you know, he's going to speak, and then thereafter he'll take a number of questions. Just to tell you a little bit about him, Mr. Sizwe, I didn't know that you're Errol also. Errol Nxasana, hold a BCom and a BCom honors and a CA. He's a CA, eh? And he started his career at Unilever. It's amazing how many people have started their careers in Unilever. And in 1989, he became an entrepreneur. He started Sizwe Company, the first black-owned audit practice in KZN. And then thereafter, he also, together with other partners, formed Sizwe Nxasana. Then at that time it was called Nkonki Sizwe Nxasana. And they were the real pioneers. I remember in those years, 1989, 1996, 1997, we were all starting companies. We were leading Excel, and it was that exciting time. At that time where we saw the entrepreneurs entering the place, in the marketplace. But after that, he decided he wanted to join Telkom SA, and he became the Chief Executive Officer. And he did an amazing thing. I changed the state-owned enterprise and listed it on Johannesburg Stock Exchange and in New York. And probably this is the most successful state-owned enterprise. Let's give him a round of applause for doing that. And I've been watching Zondo Commission. I haven't seen anything about Telkom. So you must have laid a very good culture of corporate governance, of leadership, ethics, and integrity. So, and your leaders are doing a great job. Sipho Maseko was here, and he gave us a very good talk about what they're doing. He also then ran First Rand Bank since 2005 until 2015, almost 10 years of that time. Amazing work that he has done there. So now he's at a stage where he's in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where he's self-actualizing and he's doing great things, giving back. You remember when we had Simon from Woolworths, he says our lives is roughly 30 years each, 30 years of learning and 30 years of earning, and then 30 years of giving. And so I think he's in that space. He's a chairman of various foundations, and he's also a chairman of National Education Collaboration Trust. He's also founder and chairman of Ugusasa Student Financial Aid Program, and he also ran the funding structure of the university for some time. I think that made you grow a little bit grayer more. It was quite challenging, that one. And he's now a social entrepreneur, and he's running schools, Future Nation Schools. I would love you to tell us a little bit more about that. He also founding Sifiso Learning Group, which owns a number of businesses in the education field. He's very passionate. He's also a doctor, by the way. He's got honorary doctorates from a number of universities, University of Fort Hare, Durban University of Technology, and am I getting it right there, Theo? And Walter Sisulu. So This man has really done a great job, and that's why we are inviting people like this one so that we can inspire us and inspire a lot of young people. So Baba Nxasana, over to you. Please come up front.
Thanks very much, Dr. It's a pleasure to be here. Apologies, I was slightly late because I didn't realize what happened from Pretoria Road coming here, at the turn-off there. But anyway, I just made it. So it's a pleasure, and I really must congratulate you for what you've done here. It's really just amazing. You know, you and I have met a couple of times, and you talked about what ULP is. It's not real until you see it. And when you see it, it really comes to life. And to see so many people here just bears testimony to your leadership and what you and your family, Umama Sekaya, and you have accomplished. So this is really amazing. Because we all know that Africa is actually not short of leaders. We have our own problems here and there in a few countries, but we have plenty of leaders. Very often it's about giving people who are, like people who are in this room, opportunities to lead and give them space to really express themselves and do amazing things. And if you do that, it's amazing what is possible. So I really feel so honored and privileged. In fact, I can sort of feel the pressure about Masiza in your opening remarks. I can feel the pressure already. That the expectations are high. When people say I want to deliver a keynote address, it's not child's play when you're going to give a keynote address. But in any case, I decided, and in fact, in just my conversation with Baphateba, to tell you about my journey, but, there are anecdotes in there which have been my axioms or my experiences about leadership. And obviously, as you grow up, as you do what you do, you come across a lot of different ideas or even versions of what leadership may be and what it may be not. So it's in that context that I'm just going to relate my story and then throw a couple of anecdotes in terms of what it means. And I know I have about half an hour or so I'll try and keep to the time. Just to give you a little bit of background, which is not in my CV, which Baphateba read earlier on. I was born in Newcastle. And my father was a school teacher and my mother was a nurse, typical middle sort of income family. And at a very young age, my father decided, him and his friends, to go and relocate to Lesotho. And that's quite an important part of my life because at age 4 already, I was in a boarding school somewhere in Lesotho. And it was a girls' boarding school. And there were only 4 boys, my brother and I, and 2 other boys. And we were living in a dormitory of girls in a little apartment. The important thing there, and I'm not suggesting that you must do that to your children, but the important thing there is that at a very young age, I learned about self-awareness and about self-management and taking responsibility and accountability for what I do, because there's no mom and dad. When you're at boarding school, you have these play moms, and everybody's, especially if there's only 4 boys, you have plenty of play moms. So they all fight over you little boys, But anyway, your parents, your true parents are not there. So you grow up in that environment where you understand how to survive, what to do for yourself, and even how to defend yourself, because bullying is not a new thing. It's always been there. So you're at a boarding school and there are always going to be bullies in any environment. So that's just important because that talks to, and all of us have experiences in our lives that improve our self-awareness. In other words, you understand the kind of person you are, you understand your weaknesses, you understand your strengths, you understand what is possible, and you understand when you are alone particularly, what you need to do to deal with difficult circumstances. Because all of us, life is hard, life is not easy. So that's quite an important part of my life. But there are a couple of things that happened. My mother is a typical Zulu maiden. In fact, I was at her home this last weekend, Engutu, if you know Ngutu. So my mother came from this background where they're all girls, what people do even today in rural Zululand, if boys are looking after cattle or sheep or goats, the pastime is to fight. So you fight. Yeah. So that's your favorite pastime. So my mother grew up fighting with boys because there were no boys. She was one who was chosen by the family to look after the cattle. So she's as hard as nuts, as hard as they come. She won't take stuff from anybody, including men. Even as we grew up. If you had a teacher that she was not happy with, that was not, for instance, being fair or looking after us or giving us work, that we needed to do as our children, she got directly involved. Very often I saw my mother showing up at school, and I knew there was trouble somewhere. For instance, I would have done what is now grade 4 in 3 schools, because she would go to the school and then she doesn't like something, she takes you out, she gets you into another school. And so that kind of mom. And she had this thing that when you turned 9 years old, you had to know how to go to town by yourself. So I remember my first trip. I was 9 years old, doing standard 3, and we lived in Umlazi township in Durban. And my first chore or trip by myself was to go to town to go and get my dad's dry clean. So you get given money and instructions, take a Patco bus, and here are the directions to go to Smith Street, to personal dry cleaners. This is what you're going to do, collect the dry clean and come back, okay? And what she was doing essentially is to do what schools are supposed to do but never do, is to give you a lot of these skills, because schools typically give you knowledge. You must study math or history or all these subjects, but they never really give you life skills. So, and it was quite an amazing. I remember, obviously, I went to town, needless to say, I got lost. Fortunately, in Durban, if you're getting lost, and I walked exactly the opposite direction, so I ended up at the sea, so I couldn't walk any further. And it was now about 5:30 p.m. in the afternoon, because I went to town after school. Needless to say, I was crying and, I asked people around where was the taxi rank, Patco bus to take the bus back to Umlazi. The moral of that story is it taught me from a young age that life is more than just books. You have to be streetwise. You have to know how to navigate different circumstances and so on by yourself, and you must make certain decisions. And I remember sort of coming home probably at about 7 p.m. and it's really dark. As a parent today, I would have been worried sick. Maybe she was, but her words were, "Oh yeah, you're back. Oh, okay, where's the change?" So I counted the change, here the slips, here's a change. I'm like, whew, I've gone through this harrowing experience of getting lost. And this is all she says. She's not saying like, did you get lost or anything like that? But anyway, I'm back. And that is about training ourselves. And part of it, we have people, family, friends, teachers, that train you to be aware of yourself. Because that teaches you a couple of things. One of the things, for instance, that I knew from a very young age is that I wasn't the smartest kid. I was never a smartest kid in class. It was worse when, especially during those days, it was corporal punishment. If there was corporal punishment, I was the bottom of the class. If there were 35 kids in the class, I was number 35. Okay? But if there was no corporal punishment, maybe I was number 15. Okay, so I never got into any prizes or anything like that. But when I got to high school, what I understood by myself then was that if I just put in 3 more hours than the average person, I could be better than them.
Yeah.
I figured that out. I cracked that code, that if I just put in a few more hours than the next person, I could actually be okay. And I remember just sort of, we did Form 4 and Form 5. It wasn't, grade 9, 10, and 11 as it is, today. So I just worked more than anybody else. And therefore, my matric results were really great. And that's been the motto for my whole life. So even today, I work about 15 hours a day, every day, today. So I wake up typically at 3:30 in the morning, and I'm at gym at 4:30. I'm at work by 6 o'clock. I'm not done until I'm finished at 10 o'clock. So I can cover a whole lot of work that a lot of really smart people probably need about 7 hours to do. But I can do, or even outdo them. I had this friend called Joe at high school, at Matric. Joe is the smartest kid that I've ever come across. May his soul rest in peace, because he passed away last year. But Joe, he's the kind of kid, I'm not sure if there's this kid called Sbatle that's been shown on television that you can give any sum. And he's 9 years old, and Sbatle can give you an answer. Joe was exactly like that, if not better. So Joe used to sleep, in dorm when we are studying and, really butting our guts to, and he would just get A's. But what I figured was that, well, life is not about just how book smart you are and how intelligent you are. When you're out in the world, it is about a lot of other things that are beyond how smart you are, that really determine whether you succeed or not in life. And that's why, some of these things that my mother did to us were really, really, really important. Just to give you another very quick story. My mother, sort of comes from the Anglican Church as an example. So all of us were Anglican, even where she was born, there's an Anglican mission and so on. But she figured that the Anglicans were losing the way in the quality of education. And my mother was not precious about us being Anglican, so she rebaptized all of us as as Roman Catholics. Because the Roman Catholic schools were good, so we were all sent to this priest, rebaptized as Roman Catholics, and off we went to a Roman Catholic school. It was good. So she has a really huge influence on what I became. But when I looked at myself, and part of just understanding yourself, I was very much like my dad, who was, again, the smartest person that I knew, but had a problem in that, and we didn't know when we were kids growing up, and maybe even during the time, we didn't know what alcoholism was about, that, you could have a gene, depending on your character and some of your genetic makeup, you could be alcoholic. So my character is exactly the same as my dad when I just look at myself. So if I do something, I'm properly OCD. So his OCD, the way he took it out was that he became an alcoholic. So even today, I'm petrified of alcohol. So there's a negative, positive thing that happened, because when I looked at myself, I was like, well, I don't want to be like my dad, because I do everything that he does. So the only thing I'm not going to do is to take to the bottle, because I know once I do that, I can't help myself. So I know. That's why I go to gym 7 days a week, 365 days a year, because at least that's how I channel, sort of my energy and my OCD, because I'm exactly like, he was. But there are a lot of things that we then figure out in our lives that at least I figured out in my life. That, for instance, that decision, there are choices that we make for ourselves every single day. Every single day, we are faced with this choice versus that choice. And you've got to really think about your choices, about your life and how you manage your life and your career and your aspirations and what you want to do with yourself. It is a really active process. Every day, at least I believe so, every day it's about actively managing what I want to do, me. And it's a sometimes very selfish decision that you've got to make for yourself. That no, I want this choice versus that choice because this is what I believe is good for me. You know, and I'll tell you a couple of examples of how, for me, that's happened. So fast forward, I go to university, I finish and everything else. And I guess serendipity, luck, is always there. But if you are ready and you think about your career actively and you manage it actively, serendipity and luck sort of happens and collide and the stars line up to enable you to achieve whatever you want to do. Let me give you an example just about, you know, my story. So obviously it was sheer luck that when I was doing Form 5 in 1974, 45 years ago, in a Roman Catholic boarding school, I met my wife. Okay, I was 16 years old, she was 14 years old. We knew nothing about life really. We were completely, you know, young teenagers. And 45 years later, we married. Obviously, we didn't get married 45 years ago. In fact, you know, as we all know, we us guys sometimes need to be nudged a bit. Because after 10 years, she was like, well, where is this going? Because I wasn't making up my mind whether I really want to marry her or, you know, anyway, 35 years ago, we got married eventually. So, but that was luck, because it's not often that you find someone, a partner, that you share a lot of values with and a lot of aspirations with. And that's had a huge impact on my life. So other than my mom and dad, Julie, my wife, and what we do together and how we've both grown or pursued our dreams together has just been one of those things that I can attribute to God or luck or serendipity. It doesn't matter what you want to call it. But then after you do that, there are certain decisions. After you've had that luck, there are certain decisions that you've got to make, you know, for yourself. So, you know, qualified as a CA, she was studying, you know, to become a medical doctor. We started a family when she was still in medical school. And then decided that after I passed, I was going to start a practice. And by the way, I had many failures. So I failed, there may be a couple of CAs in this room. I failed the CA exam 3 times. So that's why I just told you earlier on, I'm not smart. I just worked damn hard. So I failed 3 times. But the lesson from that is, once you want something, and often you're going to have a lot of speed bumps. But if you really want something and you really want it bad, you just will not quit. Yeah. It doesn't matter that you're going to stumble, that you're going to fail. And I even talking about self-awareness, I learned a lot more from those CA exam failures about myself and what I was capable of than I did from all the other years that I succeeded. All of them put together. Because then I could figure out what I needed to do, how I needed to think about myself, and how I needed to deal with failure. And that was quite an amazing experience. Anyway, I started the practice because that's what I wanted to do. And it was an amazing journey. You know, the country was opening up. So, and again, talking about serendipity, it's being born at the right time, because the fact that I started practice 3-4 years before South Africa became independent, suddenly opportunities just opened up. But we were ready for them, because we were there. We were running these small little practices that were doing books for bottle store owners. And you know, the most sophisticated work that we did was to audit trusts of lawyers, because we had black lawyers. Because no white business would ever give you business at that stage. So it's quite an amazing, it was an amazing thing. But a couple of years into starting the practice, I started thinking, for starters, I hated auditing. I just absolutely hated auditing. I didn't see the point of auditing. I didn't see why you do it. So the minute I had another partner, which was about 2 years after I started the practice, I was done doing auditing, and I was running the consulting part of the practice. So anyway, I mean, there may be auditors here. If you love your job, great. So I'm not trying to discourage you. It's good for you, and you must really, there are great auditors out there. But you know, I just didn't like it. But for me, this was not the end. So after about, probably I was, about 31 years old, I said, well, you know, by the time I turn 40, I'll be done doing this, because I can see myself retiring, even running this practice, regardless how successful it was. So anyway, the practice grew. We had 7 offices throughout the country, employing almost 400 people, and we're really doing well. And we could even afford to go to Sun City and have a strat plan in Sun City, which we did. And that's where at the end of the start session, we had a partners meeting, and I was the CEO and the chairman of the firm. And at the end of the partners meeting, I said, well, I've got a really important thing to tell the partners. And that was the fact that I was resigning. So everybody's like, what happened? Is the firm okay? And are we doing okay? You know, do you know something that we don't know? So I then say to them, no, it's not about you. The firm is fine. It's not about you. It's about me, you know. I actually left the firm before I knew exactly where I was going. All I knew was that, you know, at that stage, and Baphatebe did mention, you know, people were starting firms. BE was now really starting to happen, because this is now 1997. You know, so the government had all these policies. They wanted transformation and so on. So I could have taken a couple of routes. I could have, you know, a lot of people that started BE companies then are billionaires, quite a few of them, or, you know, they made lots of money. I could have joined corporates, because corporates were looking for these black people who were, you know, executives. I decided to, and in fact, it was almost sheer luck, because I met someone at the Intercontinental Hotel here in Sandton, and we started talking, and there was an advert of Telkom CEO in the Sunday Times, and we started talking about this advert. And I remember flying back to Durban, because I still lived in Durban, and I thought, oh, in fact, here's my job. And indeed, I applied for this job, and the rest is history. You know, because I ended up, I ended up at Telkom. So, and that's why when I talk about active management of what you do about your life, sometimes it's as selfish as that. I know I probably could have handled my resignation from Sizwe Nxasana better than what I did, because I really just sprung it on the partners, which was an irresponsible thing to do with hindsight. You know, but anyway, the firm has grown much bigger after I left than when I was there. So I can't take any credit for the fact that they are the 5th largest firm in the country. I can't, and I shouldn't. So, but the important thing is, for me, I wanted another challenge. And it was an active process of saying, well, comfortable and cushy as my job as the CEO of the firm is, this is not what I really want. And I deliberately put myself in a really uncomfortable position where my wife would say, well, we up. You're waking up in the morning, and where are you going? What are you going to do? And I'm like, I'm not sure. You know, we're going to figure it out. I'm going to figure it out. But I mean, it's a bit stupid, but it is a very deliberate thing of saying, I drew a line in the sand, and I said, when I turn 40, I'll be out of this thing. And I was 40 years and 3 months when I then quit, because I had set myself that target without exactly knowing where I was, but I sort of pictured that there were opportunities that were opening up in the country. I didn't want BE, I didn't want to go to a white corporate South Africa, and this is what I wanted, because I wanted to be part of what our country or a new government wanted to do. And telecom was a niche. That's why when I was flying back to Durban, having read the Sunday Times advert, this was exactly what I was looking for. But I didn't know whether I was going to get the job or not, you know. But anyway, I did get the job. Okay, fast forward. And again, at that stage, when I was still at Sizwe Nxasana, I sort of started sort of mapping my life in 10-year cycles. You know, Babhat was talking about, you know, Simon Sussman was saying, you have 30, 30, 30. Mine was always been 10, 10, 10. Okay, so that's how I thought about my life, and it's a very deliberate and very active plan of how I manage myself in that 10-year cycle. So, you know, telecom, 8 years, but one of the things that I promised myself is that I will never let anybody manage my career. I will manage my career myself. Okay, so when there were signs at telecom that, hey, there are certain people and characters that I'm not sure now. So even though 10 years was not up, and it was 8 years, I decided it's time to go. It's time to go. And I was going to start a business because, you know, I had exposure to telecoms and so on. So I'd done a business plan, spent a lot of money doing a business plan to actually start a mobile virtual network operating company. That's what I was going to do. I spent really a lot of money putting this together. You know, just like Virgin Mobile, if you know Virgin Mobile. So you don't have your own network, but you ride on someone else's network. So that's what I was going to do. And then I had known, you know, the founders of First Rand from way back during my audit days. So they then approached me and said, no, you know, Laurie Diepenaar was retiring and this, that, and the other. So I said, no, man, I'm not interested in this thing. Yes, I've got a plan. This is what I want to do with myself. Anyway, it took like a year of conversations and saying, no, you can actually do what you want to do within the bank because there's convergence between telecoms and banking and this, that. Anyway, it made sense for me based on what I wanted, that, you know, yes, even though I wanted to go and start this business as an entrepreneur, but I was going to have an opportunity to be part of this group, and you know, and there were opportunities really, particularly in the retail bank at FNB, to really grow the mobile part or the digital part of that business. And it made sense to me, and obviously it was worthwhile to do it, monetarily, that is. But it was a very active decision of deciding this is what I want to do. Anyway, as you know, I stayed for 10 years there. So, but there are a couple of things which in all of this have been quite important. And a lot of it I've talked about, for instance, self-management or self-awareness. And part of that is that, you know, if people, there are certain things that enable you to lead, and some of them were in the clips that were shown here, but they remain, you know, very true, that you've got to be reliable. So there's one thing, you know, sometimes you have people, you know, you organize a party and you're given responsibilities to maybe go and buy drinks. You can't even do that. You know, so you are just not a reliable person. But we all agree that there's a decision that you make. It's not something you are born with. You decide to be reliable or not reliable. You decide to be conscientious or not conscientious. You know, you decide and how you think about yourself to be adaptable or not adaptable. And just talking about, you know, this adaptability as an example. So a lot of people often ask me, how did you manage the transition from accounting and auditing and consulting to telecoms? We all are capable of doing that. How did I manage the transition from telecoms to banking? I'm now 150% in education. I'm a school teacher, by the way, these days. So I actually teach. I teach grade 9, 10, and 11 at Future Nation schools, accounting, leadership, and entrepreneurship. And you know, I was speaking in Dubai, I'm speaking everywhere about education because people now sort of recognize me as this expert in education. The important thing with that is that we are all capable of, often people put you in a box. That's the first thing. Your boss, your parents, your family, they say you are trained as this profession, and often you think that's where you're going to live and die. You don't have to. Especially now, everybody talks about the fourth industrial revolution. One of the critical things with the current age, with the future of work, is the ability to be adaptable to different situations. And what you need to do that, what you need is the ability for lifelong learning. What does that mean? Let me give you an example. So when I joined Telkom, you know what happens? So when I joined Telkom, my predecessor had his own lift. His car at Telkom Towers was parked in a cage so that nobody could interfere with it for security or some other reason that I don't understand. And he had his own lift that takes him up to the 24th floor, which is where the CEO office was. So I came there, I'm like, no, I don't want this. I don't want a driver. I don't want security. I'm going to travel with everybody else. But what I'm going to do is to learn this telecoms business, because before I got there, the only experience I had with telecoms was making a call on a mobile phone. But I spent 18 months literally completely immersing myself, going, you know, these people that you see with vans at the street corners. You sit with them, you go to yards, you talk their language, you understand what they do, you understand the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle, because if you don't do that, especially way back then, you're going to have your executives that put you in a box. They park you in office, they give you all the frills, and you know nothing about the business. Zilch. So it's the same thing when I moved into banking. Complete immersion. You've got to speak the language, you've got to understand terminology, you've got to understand the jargon, you've got to understand the people, you've got to understand the key drivers, and that takes a huge amount of time to learn, but all of us are capable of doing that. It needs time to be invested in learning about it, in whatever sector or business it is. You know, so that's why when I retired from the bank, the latter part of 2015 and early part, in fact, the whole of 2016, I traveled literally the whole world learning about education, education models, different types of schools. What do they do? How do they teach? What's the curriculum look like? How do you think about teacher training? All of that. And you completely immerse. That's why today, when people ask me about banking, I sort of vaguely remember. Honestly, I vaguely remember what banking was all about, because my mind space is completely about education. That's what it is. But we are all capable of doing that. And it's about how you manage yourself and how you think about yourself, and not allowing people, including your family and your bosses, to put you in a box. Yeah. And very often we put ourselves in a box. It is scary to change, but it is exciting, because suddenly you have different networks, you have different people that you come across that you may not have come across, and you stayed in your job or in your sector forever. I mean, today I fraternize with teachers, we chill, you know, we do all of these things that teachers do, because I'm now part of them. They see me as part of them. It's because I can speak their language. I can understand exactly what they do, but I bring a different perspective because of my other experiences that I've come across along the way. So, and leadership is about that. It is about, obviously, how you think about yourself and how you are able to work with people in different settings. And you understand when to lead and when to be led. I mean, I'm led because I'm still very young in the education space, so there are a lot of other people who lead me. Even though, yes, I've started the schools and started this education business, I've allowed myself to be led by those who know. But I've got to tell myself, at a certain point, I must really understand the minutiae of what this education business, from ECD all the way up to postdoc, if you like. I've got to understand it and how it works. Who are the players? What makes it work? What kind of ecosystem is it if I'm going to be part of it? So we can all do that, you know, for ourselves. And that's why in this fast-paced, changing digital world, We can all do that. We can all do that, especially if it can be done by a person who's not as smart as I am. There are a lot of really smart people in this room. You can do it even much better, even much faster for yourself. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. You can sit. I don't know whether. Do it. Okay, we're gonna get.
I like standing actually. I work standing in my office, so I never sit there.
I'll give you a pen.
No, you can't stand.
Take the questions and you can.
Okay, good.
Okay. We're gonna take 3 questions. And then you can. Okay. Let's take 3 questions. Ladies, Mantombazan. It's only ladies this time. Okay, we're taking you, my sister, and then we're taking you there, and then we're taking you, my brother. Let's take the 3, and then Suzo move out this side, dang it. In that order, my sister, my brother. My brother.
Hi, my name is Rachel. You stayed in audit, post articles, and this is a very uncomfortable time of the year. People have passed APC, they're doing their 3rd year of articles, you're thinking, what do I do? Do I stay in audit? I hate it, but maybe I should stay and learn how to manage people, how to manage projects, how to engage with clients. So how do you best advise what you're doing post articles? Do you stay? Do you learn other things from now managing your clients rather than sitting and doing the technical groundwork as a trainee? Do you stay in the firm because you've built relationships with people in the firm, move to tax advisory, and use your opportunities within the firm to say, I know people, so maybe I can rather stay in, and if I hate audit, I don't know how you did it, to stay, maybe do something else, or let me just leave, be in FM. How do you best advise a person what to do post-articles?
Thank you so much, Rochelle. Let's take the second one. Let's take 3 of them if it's fine, Baba Nxasana, and then you can respond to it. Okay, let's take the second one.
Hi, Mr. Nxasana. Thank you for such an incredible talk. I'm also a little bit OCD, so I had to write my question down. So last Sunday was Mother's Day, so it wasn't lost on me that you gave a very touching story about your mom. It's also quite well known that you have another incredible woman in your life, Dr. Judy Dlamini. So my question is, what role have strong women played in your life? And I think over and above that, what role do you think that women leaders have to play in South Africa and Africa as a whole, if given the opportunity to lead?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. My brother there?
Thank you. You are such a great leader.
Yes, such a?
Jabulani is such a great leader.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for the compliment.
Yes. My name is Jabulani Milapi. I'm currently a chairperson of the Gauteng Youth Forum in mining and upcoming president of South African Youth in Mining and Business.
Oh, Baba. Baba.
My question is, what advice can you give a young person like me to lead the old men like you and and our future leaders as young people?
Thank you so much, Baba.
The second question.
Let's take the last one.
Yes, the second question quick.
Okay.
What role are you playing in helping our current leaders in government specifically, because we have a challenge?
Yes, another challenge layer here too. All right, we're going to allow Baba Nxasana to respond to the 3 questions. Then we're going to take, hopefully, we need to be done by 8. We'll take the second set, and then we'll be done.
Right, so starting with Rachel's question, I know sometimes you're at these crossroads that you don't know, do you stay in the firm, do you leave, what choices do you have? It really depends on what you want to do with your life. Let me just give you an example of how I normally think about these crossroads. Because as I said earlier, I mean, it is about choices, and choices that you make every day. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. Yeah, I mean, I'll give you an example. So after I finished articles, I ended up at SBDC as a business advisor. Bad decision. So I stayed there for 6 months. Because what I thought I was going to do there and the people that I was going to work with was not what I had in mind. So I think, and for me, and this is a very personal thing, so I quit in 6 months because I had made a wrong choice and I had to cut my losses. So I had to cut my losses, and I did. So I cut my losses. I ended up working for a sugar company because I was in KZN. So don't procrastinate making that choice. Look at your options. Sometimes write them down if that's what works for you. Visualize them. I always visualize if I go there, and you've got to do your homework. It amazes me when people come for an interview and they really want a job, but they have not done their own research about the company, and the information may even be publicly available. It's like, are you really serious? You don't know what we do here, you don't know how things work here, you don't know who works here, but you want this job? So the point I'm making is, you've got to do your work around the choices that you have. Just like, university teaches you to look at pros and cons, to critically think about choices. You apply exactly the same logic in how you think about whether you stay in a firm, work with people that you know, or not. And I know, especially when you're young, sometimes these things are a little bit hazy and fuzzy and you're not sure, because suddenly, you finished university, you did your ITC, which is your first board exam, and then you do your APC. You already maybe are 24 or thereabouts, making big decisions that are going to determine the future of your life. But you don't even know much about these decisions that you're making, including buying your car, which car must you buy, which house must you buy, how should you finance it. You're making really all these big decisions that have been made for you by your parents before. But you've got to make them. And that's how you're going to learn what works for you and what doesn't work for you. So that by the time you are a little bit older, you will be much clearer in your mind about what it is that you want to do with your life. So I know it's not a sort of clean or straightforward answer, but you've just got to make a decision, put your choices down, and why each one of them is good or bad, and then just go for it. Sometimes you get it wrong, but you will have made a decision, and that often that decision leads to something else, as opposed to staying and standing still. So, and yeah, I've talked about the story of the two most important women in my life, and yeah, leadership and gender. I'm not trying to promote my wife's book because this was subject of her doctoral thesis, a PhD, which sort of explored the role of women and this intersection of race, gender, and social class. But generally, generally I grew up believing and being told that there was no difference. Let me tell you a very quick story about my family, because this will help with the context. So I have 3 brothers and 3 sisters. I'm a middle child. I'm number 4, okay? My mother, being tough, as I told you earlier on, did not distinguish between boys and girls at all. So each one of you, as 7 children, had exactly the same chores, including my eldest sister, who's disabled because she contracted polio when she was 3 months old. And in the 50s, the cure for polio was not as what we have, the inoculation and all that was, so she was on a wheelchair. But she was expected to do exactly the same chores that we did as boys, that my other 2 sisters did. Whether it was working in the garden, so you had 2-week rotations in your chores. You were either in the kitchen or you were cleaning the other, you know, a 4-roomed house, you're cleaning the other 3 rooms and doing the ironing, if that's what your chore was that week, or you were working in the garden, either someone is working in the front garden or working in the back garden. For the girls and the boys, it's the same. It was exactly the same. And because of that, I never saw the distinction in terms of what we as boys and girls could do, including in the workplace. Because even today, so that's why my wife and I can work. Other people sort of often find it odd. I mean, even today, we occupy the same building. We don't co-manage. That's one thing we don't do. She runs her own group, the Mbegani group. I run my own group, because our styles are really different. You'll be mixing water and oil. From a leadership standpoint, if we were going to work together, and we're both strong-headed, so it's just not going to work. You know, it's just not going to. So we agreed earlier on that, you know, one day when we're working together, even though physically we may be in one building, you know, she will do her stuff and I'll do her stuff. And I don't second guess her in running her business. She doesn't second guess me in running my business. You know, and we both grow and we support each other in whatever dreams or aspirations that we have. So that's how I was brought up. And even in our business, in everywhere where I've been, whether it was a telecom or the bank, I didn't see, I mean, obviously I needed to give opportunities to women, because society, starting with society, let alone corporate rules, you know, hold women back. You know, because we all know, we finish universities like what Rachel was saying, we're all the same. Then women start getting children if they are, you know, that's a decision that they've made, you know, for themselves and their families. And then the corporate setup, all the rules around the way of work, including even small things like, for instance, retirement. What happened? When do you retire? All those rules that have not changed even today are made for the advantage and the benefit of men. So unless you change them, you're forever going to have a situation where women are left behind. Because, you know, just like my mother, maybe giving you an example, you know, my mother only did matric when my father passed away when she was 50. But she went on to finish matric, did a degree, did a master's, right up to a master's, changed careers. And this is a story of a lot of women, that you really start to really look after yourself when the kids are grown up. But the corporate rules, when you're 50, say you're too old, you can't come back. You can't come back, and there are no pathways that let you back in and fast track you, or even put you in a position, because you've got so much experience, put you in a position where you don't need to start from the bottom. That's not how corporate rules work. So I'm just saying, women have a really important role to play in this country, in the continent, in the world, but we've got to change a whole lot of rules and principles and stereotypes to make that possible to do so. So, you know, they absolutely have a, you know. And Jabulani, the advice on you know, intergenerational, I've mentioned, for instance, that I'm being led right now. You know, all the people that I work with, the principals that I work with, when I'm at Future Nation schools, and it's quite an amazing thing, sometimes you have parents that are complaining about something. You know, so we have a campus in Soweto, in Flair, we have a campus in Lindust, as an example. So, you know, so you have parents say, you know, they'll escalate things to me because they think maybe they're going to get a different decision because they didn't like the decision that the principal, who's much younger, made. When I'm at school as a teacher, in spite of the fact that I've put my own family money there and what have you, but when I'm there, the decisions that are made by the person that has been appointed as principal are the final decisions. So it doesn't matter that you're young. It doesn't matter that, you know, leadership, of course there's experiences that build your leadership capabilities and so on, but there are tons of really great young people who are leaders. And it's how we think about this intergenerational story of leadership. So it's got nothing to do with chronology of age. It's got everything to do about those characteristics that are important in leadership. So, and the role that I play in government, I'm really, really fortunate and privileged. So Bab Hadebe did mention, I still work with government a lot. I mean, even today, after this, I'm speaking to one of the ministers about something that government wants me to do. So, obviously, my area of work and interest is education. So, just to give an example, in 2013, I co-founded the National Education Collaboration Trust. The work that we do, let me explain to you what that is. So, it's a trust that we created at the peak of all the crises that we were facing in education, with books that were being dumped in rivers and mud schools and all of that kind of stuff. And three of us then came together and said, we can either sit around braai tables or braai fires, and we can all moan and criticize, or we can do something about it, the problems that we face in education. So that's what it is. So I hosted a dialogue. At first, when invited the presidency, the minister, and a few other ministers, the unions, SATU, there are 7 unions in education, and said, how do we work together to solve the problems that we have? Because at the end of the day, this is about our children, all of our children. It's not union children and government children and private sector children, it's our children. Okay, so we must stop thinking about ourselves, but think about the future of our children. Anyway, to cut a long story short, we created this NECT, and it does a couple of things. We work with government. Like now, we've developed the whole curriculum, which is a 3-stream curriculum, because South Africa up to now has had a 99% academic curriculum for schools from grade 1 to grade 12. So we now have the technical curriculum for those kids that must be put in that stream, or that have the competence or the capability to follow that stream, or the ICT curriculum, which also today in the context of the 4th Industrial Revolution is quite important. One of the other key policy advocacy roles that we've played in the NECT is to argue for the move of early childhood development from DSD, from the Department of Social Development, to basic education. Finally, at the ANC elective conference in 2017, the ANC as the leading party, or the ruling party, took that decision. That decision is now being implemented. It was announced by the president at SONA. The NECT was driving that process, and where we are now is to help both DSD and DBE to manage that transition, because it's quite a big part. ECD is probably about 60% of the Department of Social Development, because if you take SASA out, that's the only big part which they do. So we're helping government with that process through the NECT. So the NECT is funded partially by government, partially by business, and a little bit by the unions. So we sit together, and it's one of the reasons why, for instance, we haven't had labor unrest in the education space for the last couple of years, because we have this common platform which is non-partisan, where we sit and we do this. We train teachers, we develop learning and teaching material. The tools and materials that we've developed are now being used in 16,000 of the 24,000 schools in the country. Okay, so it's a huge amount of work. So, and Bab Hadebe talked about the IGUSASA Student Financial Aid Program. You may want to ask questions about NSFAS. I'm happy to deal with those, why I left NSFAS, but that's not, I wanted to just talk about it. So when I got to NSFAS, it was quite clear that for the last 20 years, how we funded students that come from poor and working class background is just wrong. They're poorly funded. We don't direct students what they should be studying. 60% of them drop out, contribute to the unemployed young people that we have in the country. So I then went to Minister Blade, at the time was the minister, and said, here's a model. I actually worked and developed a whole blueprint that says, here's the model that we've got to follow. One, we've got to bring the private sector to the party, because there's no private sector. Two, we must fund students properly, because we know if a student comes from a poor family, what do you expect them to do to eat or to live if you give them partial funding? You're setting them up for failure. And three, regardless of whether these kids come with straight A's, they come from schools that have not prepared them for university or TVET college. So you've got to do a whole lot of work, smart as they are, to prepare them for success. So, which includes psychosocial support, life skill support, and all of these things that you need at post-school at university or TVET college. Cut long story short, we went right up to Cabinet, and that's how IGUSASA Student Financial Aid Program was actually started. So I then mobilized the private sector because government didn't put any money in it. And today we're at 11 universities. We're achieving for actuarial science, engineering, accounting, medicine, all these data scientists, a pass rate of about 90%. 90%, because they're funded properly. So right now, we're looking at how NSFAS can be transformed to adopt what we've done over the last, this is our 3rd year. So we have a track record of 3 years that says this is how you do it properly. If you're going to, it's not about just writing a check and saying, do you qualify because you come from a poor family, and you stop there. We need skills for the country. We've got to make sure that the young people are prepared for not just degrees, but for employability or starting businesses once they finish. So you can't just give them money. So we have more than 2,000 students on that program now, and as I said, we're negotiating a PPP to take all these systems that we've built and the process that we've built in ISFAB and use them, you know, for the 400,000 or so students that are funded through NSFAS.
Thank you. Yeah. Powerful stuff. We're taking the last one.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Okay, you can ask about anything, anything. I mean anything. Those who are online, kona basbugele moyen. Eh? Only one. Okay. Now we kona basbugele moyen. We're gonna take them. Take one from moyen. I say moyen baba.
How do we help upcoming millionaires stay grounded before the money? For we know with each new level of new reach, a new level of recklessness is inevitable.
Yeah, whatever it says, but there's a millionaire that we need to do. Okay. You sorted with? Okay, yeah. You could with the question. Okay. Number 2, my brother here. Yeah. My brother here. And then that side, okay.
Okay.
Should we? No, my brother here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Sir,
we are not going to take all the questions, sorry guys. We can also find us on Twitter and ULP. Okay.
Okay. I would love just to ask about, did you have mentors yourself, especially like even as an entrepreneur as well?
Mentorship. Okay.
Yes.
Let's take it quickly. Okay, somebody decides it's anything pressing, anything super intellectual, super mind. Okay, my sister, we're taking you, and then my sister, we have a significant key, a scale key. Okay.
It's more of a comment on my side because I'm in the electronics manufacturing, where we manufacture anything electronic, decoders, cell phones, and your tablets. Now, how do we, the industry, connect with the people like you in the education sector, whereby we provide these actually tablets that are required by the next generation? Because now we're doing away with papers and books, but we're going e-learning.
Okay, thank you. Let's take the last one. Usiso Pete. Skedem key. Yes, kumbul skedem key. Petting key too, and I'm not doing it after when. Say fine, okay. Then I guess, as I said, find a conversation on. I think this is you know, we are streaming live. Find a conversation on Twitter, on Facebook. The hashtag is Sizwe Nxasana. If I'm not wrong, and then please tweet as much as you can. Can ask some of the questions. We'll make sure that we reroute them to Obaba. Sis, Ival.
Sure. I'm not sure if it's a pressing question, but I would like to ask a good evening, everybody. My name is Moleboheng. Mr. Nxasana, you spoke about hard work and consistency, and you gave us an illustration of your typical day and how you work 14 to 15-hour days, bar going to the gym in the morning. So my question is twofold. Firstly, do you think that balance is a myth? And secondly, how important do you think balance is in trying to establish and develop one's career?
Thank you so much. That was powerful. Thank you, my sister. Babu Nxasana, you can respond.
Yes.
And then once you're done, give us the closing remarks.
Right. Okay.
Then, if we
yeah, the question from MOAN. I think, before you have money or not money, you must think about the values by which you want to live. Because, I mean, money, what is money? Yes, of course, money buys you certain comforts and so on. I mean, but actually, there's always someone who's got more money than you. So to suddenly have a big head because you've made a couple of millions, it really doesn't, and of course, because money is a new thing to us, sometimes it can go to our heads, and then we start doing irresponsible things and that kind of thing. So it is about how you live your life and understanding that money can be here today and can be gone tomorrow. So it is about the values that you live by as a person. That's really more important than how much money you have. So, and mentorship, I've never really had formal mentors. Maybe it's because of when we were born, but I've had people that I look up to. And let me give you a story as an example of a person that I still look up to today, because having, being in his presence, even though I didn't even talk to him until much, much later, changed my life, because I said, ooh, I can do that. Professor Wiseman Kuhle. So let me tell you a quick story. So I get to Fort Hare, 1976. It's a chaotic year, but the luck, talking about serendipity, was that before June 16, there was stability at Fort Hare. And Professor Wiseman Kuhle qualified as a first black CA in March of 1976, and as a first year, completely green, coming into that university. And he was not even lecturing us, he was lecturing postgrads. So I never got to talk to him or meet him, but it was like, wow. And it was like he's this enigma who spent 8 years on Robben Island. He comes from Ala. And when you're at university, there's always this thing that there are bras from Josie, and you come from Durban, and others come from maybe PE or Attridgeville. So you don't even see people from Ala if you're from Durban, because, So to suddenly have this person who comes from Ala, he's a CA, what is that? What do those people do? I was like, what? And then you figure it out, you're young, you're 17 years old. I'm like, oh, I want to be like that guy. Yeah. He's the first one. And the rest is history. That's how I became a CA. Yeah. But I'd never talked to him until probably when I was 30. You know what I'm saying? So I've never had direct mentors. I've had people that do interesting things that interest me, and I like them, and I emulate them. So, but maybe it's because in our generation, there were not many people like that, that it could be your mentor anyway. Yeah. So you have to figure yourself out. That's why it's fortunate for young people that you can even have so many people in this room talking about, because we didn't have that privilege. So well done, because I'm sure you went through the same. Yeah. Exactly the same. There was no one that you could talk to. So maybe you had one or two people. So I've never had mentors. And the issue of tablets, I mean, I'll tell you about our business. So at Future Nation Schools, we are a highly digital environment, but it's bring your own device. We give you the spec. Your parents, if you're a student, must go and buy you. We got the basic tablet for you. or we specify the basic tablet that you need. It doesn't have to be an Apple and a Samsung, you know. So we don't take responsibility for buying them. In government, obviously, you know how it works. It's tenders. That's how it works. That's how it works in government, is you got to go and tender. I know there are other schools that have arrangements with certain suppliers. We just decided, you know, we must give parents choice or students choice. They must, as long as they meet certain minimum requirements, and off they go. And balance. Balance is not a myth, but balance is about what's important to you. You know, and what's important to you, you're going to allocate time to. So I talk about my 15-hour day, even before I came here. So for me, things that are really important is what interests me with starting with family. So I have friends, but I don't work on my friends. That's just one of the things that falls by the wayside, because my family are my friends. So, you know, I have friends, of course, but if I see them maybe once a year, do I feel terrible that I'm not having balance? No. So if you are my friend, you're in this room, sorry. I don't play golf because it doesn't really interest me. You know, it doesn't interest me. You know, so out of that 15-hour day, if I'm not working, I'm really lucky now that, you know, I work in the same building with my wife, so we have breakfast or lunches, and my daughter works in the business, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, but it's my whole ecosystem is right there. Before that, it was work and study and family, or family, work and study in that order, depending on what was the priority. So, and that's my balance. That's how I define my balance. So I don't define my balance as in there are 24 hours in a day, and therefore I've got to have 8 hours at work, another 8 hours with friends, and another 8 hours sleeping. That's not my balance. So it's how you define it yourself based on what's important to you. You know, so that's just what it is. So there are certain things that are going to suffer, but then they're not that important. They're not that important. You've got to prioritize what's important to you, and that's your balance, of your definition of balance. Thank you very much. So in my closing remarks, it really has been a pleasure, and thanks for inviting me to this amazing thing. You've really, again, this is really amazing. And as I said, you know, everybody talks about lifelong learning. And that's the parting word or closing remarks which I want to close with. That, you know, everybody always tells you you can be whatever you want to be, which is probably true for a certain percentage of people. But if you just tell yourself that it doesn't matter what you do, you're not going to allow other people to put you in a box. And sometimes it does really become tough because you've got to make those tough decisions. You know, your boss says, no, please stay and please do this, but maybe that's not exactly what you want. And sometimes you feel obligated and loyal to them. You've got to be loyal to yourself first. That's my belief. That's what I've done. Thank you.
Thank you so much. 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 Oh. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think we can do better than that. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We're going to take 2 minutes. We're wrapping up. We can sit down for 2 minutes, and then Theo, you want to project there, or should I hand over. Okay, next week we have Speakers University. Speakers University is more like a speakers boot camp. We've been running this for the past 5 years. We're targeting anyone who wants to be a speaker or a communicator. We're covering all subjects, from voice techniques, dealing with media, PowerPoint presentation, and we have a number of, speakers. Yopilis Ligane, Dr. David Timlapo, Apna Marere, Tim Morris. And then if you want to know more about the Speakers University, make sure that you talk to me, including Apna Marere will be there. Okay, then I'm going to hand over to Chair to do the vote of thanks. And then before, when the Chair is done, please make sure that you meet Azande about the Orange Farmer project. Let's give Chair a round of applause. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's give our program director a round of applause. Can do better than that. Thank you very much, Simpio. Simpio has always worked with us very well. Partnership between ULP and PowerWorks is working great. Just a number of thanks and then a number of announcements. First, I'd like to thank our sponsor today, VUA. Chilizi, stand up, let's see you, man. The man is in safety, PPE, everything, medical. And he's grown up here in ULP, and I'm very excited about seeing entrepreneurs participating here, building their businesses, and really making a difference. I've got the young ladies. Theo, I've got them on the screen here, or I've got on my notepad there? You must tell me. Okay, all right. There's a new program that we're starting. It's ULP governance. Program. The 3 ladies are young. Ladies are doing it. Deborah, where are you? Deborah, come here with your lady and just introduce them and tell them a little bit what we're going to be doing here. Let's give them a round of applause. This country is suffering a lot because of governance challenges that we have. And these young ladies under the anchor of ULP challenged me and says, we want to do something. And I said, wow, that's it. We love you. Go for it. Just explain very briefly what is going to be happening.
All right, I think I'll shout. Can you hear me at the
Can you give him a mic, please?
Yeah, I need a, no? Maybe. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Introduce your team.
I think I first have to comment that you make it look so easy to be up here. There are very many faces. So, just by way of background, I'm Deborah Mutemwa-Tumbo. I'm a chairwoman and co-founder of a law firm by the name of Tumbo Scott. We're a corporate and commercial law firm based in Sandton. This is my business partner, Dr. Tsepiso Scott, and that is our associate, Manupi. I think just very briefly to echo the words of Ms. Nxasana that Africa is not short of leaders. They just need to be given an opportunity to lead. I think that statement speaks for itself. But I would add one extra statement that they also need to be given the tools to lead. And given everything that's happened in the private sector in particular, we see that there's a need for training around corporate governance and good governance and those kinds of things. Perhaps it's important that I say who I am, what I do, perhaps because I look young. But I have been recognized as one of the top 200 young South Africans in the Justice and Law category. And I do also head up the Legal and Investigations Unit at Corruption Watch. So as a legal professional, we are the ones taking the former ESCOM board of directors to court to have them declared delinquent and the likes of that, because we've seen the failures in corporate governance in our state-owned entities. But more than that, we've seen the failures of corporate... But more than that, we've seen the failures of corporate governance in our private companies. I think if I say Steinhoff, VBS, EOH, McKinsey, KPMG, we understand what I'm talking about. So in partnership with ULP as well as Vuyo Katla, who is the executive president and legal at Sasol, we're collaborating to put together a program that will be kicking off in July, and this will be around good corporate governance. And as a law firm, we have trained some of the biggest corporate directors from some of the biggest corporate entities in South Africa. One of the 4 big banks, not your former bank, Mr. Nxasana, one of the 4 big banks, over 100 directors, and we are hoping to make this level of training available to the members of ULP. So that's my story.
Thank you very much. Wow, clap hands for the ladies. Yeah. Aye, Vachita, aye. That's ULP in action. Yeah, raising talent. And the next one. Oh, there's another lady here. She's a BP CEO, the first black woman running BP South Africa. Let's give her a round of applause. She also came to us here at ULP and said, listen, I'm very passionate about oil and gas, and I grew up in oil and gas. I spent all my working life in that space. And she said, look, I'd like to champion women in oil and gas. So where are the ladies here? Yeah. Can I hear your voice? And we're going to have a women in oil and gas workshop here, and she's championing it, and it's sponsored by Nozala and a number of other corporates that I hear. So watch the space. We'll be announcing the date and the time, and it will be happening in August, the Women's Month. On the 3rd of August, yeah, we've definitely the date. The 3rd, it's definitely the 3rd. I confirmed this morning, the 3rd. Because the 10th is going to be a long weekend, okay? All ladies, please come here if you're interested in the energy sector, whether it's oil, gas, electricity, renewables, everything is going to be here. We'll have a lot of people coming here. And the next one is Trevor Manuel, chairman of Old Mutual. He'll be here. What date is that? The 5th of June, and he'll be here. And I've been told Theo by Rian that we need to have a screen outside, or we'll have another screen in the ULP house. So come early here. Trevor is going to be here, and definitely sharing his life journey. And we're also very fortunate. We're also going to have Rick Manel. This family has done a great work in the Anglo Val then, and now they've doing a tremendous amount of work in giving and investing in South Africa. Judy, yeah. Okay, Judy, CEO of Toves Group and the Secretary of Black Business Council will be here. What date is that? 5th of September. And so we've got, I've been, you see, I listen, and I'm like our movement, we listen, and women have been on my case here. Malibong, you must come and close with the poem here, okay? Have you got your poem ready? Just, just remind me, I forget. But last time we had to know lana ngibiza amadoda kuphela la azokhuluma so ngicela ukukhuluma nomama wakho baba azonceda. This is for the self Dr. Judy azoba because this first half of the year I want women to be speaking in the year. Is that right? There you are. Because it's only been men since the beginning of the year. But we had one lady. We had one. So, I'm sure now you know ULP, so you can tell it. All right, what else? Let me see. Think tank. Where's the think tank? Or let me tell you about the think tank. We've got a ULP think tank. That's where we analyze everything about what's happening, especially with elections now, what's going to be happening in the renewal, the financing. You know, our president has been going out looking for money. all over the world. So we are definitely going to have it on the 29th of June. So just diarize there. So just watch the space, just watch social media. Even when we change the date, we changed this date to, this was supposed to be 2nd of, but we changed the date. But there were so many people who came here last week because they just don't check, and they were phoning me, phoning my wife. There's my wife. Please stand up, my wife. I also acknowledge my wife here. There she. Must stand our like her. Finally, ni bonge na. Naming nkashi. It's always a privilege to work with your wife. I agree with you, and the whole family that is helping. I'd like to. Okay, Theo, are you going to show the video now? Oh yes, let me thank you. Everyone who's online that is listening to us, and the online family is really growing up. And let's make sure that everyone that is, if you can't make it, just always watch your social media. It will tell you online. And then you can also, and I can challenge you, because we want to really make this a great movement. As my friend Dave, we've got a national mentorship movement. This mentorship must be, you can actually start your own ULP, and wherever you are, if for instance you know students and you could assemble in one place, and then they can listen online and they can also ask, so we can actually impact this nation. And I can see even the artists are here. Bra Ike is also here. Here, all right, let's listen to the video now. Huh? Hey, you conduct me from the distance. Oh, the poem first. Yeah, the poem. So I need to be reminded. Oza Malbong. Malbong is our resident poet, all the way from Windmill Park. Let's give her a round of applause.
Sanbonan, njengoba beshilo igama uMalibonge wakamgaga suke Windmill Park. This poem I wrote in honor of actually the voting season. It's called Imagine What We'd Hope South Africa Would Be. Can you imagine? Imagine a community of proclivity, prosperity, and unity. Imagine a country of symmetry and gentry. Imagine a continent of emolument, prominent and competent. Imagine South Africa. Close your eyes and picture children of all color and origin playing, sharing, and loving. Picture adults of all gender and sexuality, unprejudiced, uncontroversial, and understanding. Picture governance of all stature, uncorruptible, reliable, and serviceable. Picture Africa. Allow yourself to dream. Dream of a place increase in entrepreneurship, employment, and educational resources. Dream of a place decrease in homelessness, orphans, and diseases. Dream of a place decrease in crime, abuse, and substance abuse. Dream of Azania. Dream of togetherness. Thank you.
You still maintain your characteristics as a leader, but you relate to those that you purport to lead. You bridge the divide between self and other selves, between me and community, between person and people. You make those distinctions. That way, you will not become an element in the crucible. You still remain a catalyst.
Before you can lead, you must learn how to follow.
Yeah.
Because you are not a leader all the time. At another level, you are part of another team that's led by somebody else.
But it can't be forever. It's better to negotiate before you lose power.
Integrity from a leadership perspective is totally indispensable, because unless that is embedded, you then fail to control how everything else basically evolves.
Hard work, commitment and passion are fundamental. So if you've got clarity of purpose, you've got to know that to meet that purpose, you've got to sacrifice, you've got to work hard.
There are no easy decisions. If the decisions were easy, you did not need leaders to take decisions. We could all take our own decisions and do anything we like. Even sheep need a shepherd. There are no easy decisions for leadership. They are all complex, but they all have consequences. So our choices as leaders have consequences. We must stand and take responsibility for the consequences of the choices and the decisions that we make.
Make sure that you work yourself out of the job from day one. Make yourself out of the job, so that you open up space for some other people to come in. Otherwise, you're going to start hogging and hoarding things, and you'll destroy the organization. And that is why we can never build institutions, because you think that the institution is you. You are just a passing phase. You do your time, you do your shift, and you move on.
And then, of course, leaders also bring new people into their immediate team and into the organization they are charged with leading. It would be very strange if they didn't bring new people in. And I think a team is like a dam. Water has got to flow out, and water has got to flow in for the dam to remain vital.
This is a very big part I've felt for leadership, is that when people see that you do stuff on purpose, and you do it with conviction, they also buy into what you do.
Intuition is that thing that tells you that something is right, even though you don't have the evidence to prove it. And then you've got to have some courage. You can't go in if you're afraid. If you're afraid of failure, you'll never be an entrepreneur, because there's just too many risks, too many dangers, and if you're afraid to fail, you're going to struggle.
So I can now give back. And I learned a lesson from a friend in India who retired about the same time as I did. And I said, Nagesh, what are you going to do? He said, Simon, I spent roughly the first 30 years of my life learning. I spent the second 30 years earning. And the last 30 years, I'm going to do a lot of returning.
Being thoughtful about the impact that you will have beyond your tenure, beyond the time that you are there. Because that's the ultimate marker of leadership. How will this place be like, feel like, look like when I'm gone, all right? And actually, how do I manage it, contribute to it in such a way that when I'm gone, it's actually a lot better than when I was here.
Our entrepreneurs are in all industries. So we don't tell you what you ought to be doing. You tell us what you are going to be doing, because ultimately you are the one that has to produce the results. You are the one that needs to make sure that you're driving your targets. You're growing your business, you're employing your people, you are doing all the right things. And one of the things that is important for us is that we make sure that all our entrepreneurs are very much in tune and, complying with all the regulatory requirements.
And so the journey has had many, many lessons for me. The first lesson was that no education is useless. It's how you use it once you have it. The second lesson was have the humility to admit that while you are good at certain things, you're not good at everything. And embrace the fact that you do not know everything, because that's what helps you engage other people. Other people like it when you say, you know, I watched you at the board meeting and I love the way that you think, and you know, you're so good with the numbers. Won't you just explain this for me? And if you have the humility to admit that you don't know certain things, people are more willing to help you. That's another lesson I got. As I said, the other lesson is to grasp every opportunity that you have. Every door that opens actually opens you up to new opportunities that you didn't even know you could reach. So grasp it and add value wherever you are.
While it may be difficult times, but somewhere in the difficult times, there's always an opportunity. Yes, there is risk, but there's always an opportunity. And you as a leader, number 16, you must build that motivating and motivated staff. Create that environment conducive for people to dream big, even when there is a nightmare, a morning mare, an afternoon mare, but they still dream big.
Now, I'm not saying entrepreneurship is not good, but please, man, we're tired of doing deals now. This nation needs people who are going to do work. Are you with me?
Even if you've got a morning man. I'm just going to say something important. Elections is over. An election is not only about voting. Let's participate in the political life of our nation. We, the black intelligentsia, have left our political parties. Here I'm talking across the board. I want to encourage you now to go back to whatever political party you voted for. Join the branch of that party. Participate actively in the day-to-day running of that party. Because once we outsource politics, we will end up where we were just a few months ago, close to the cliff. Gets hijacked by thieves, hijacked by criminal elements. So please, please, in whatever way you can, don't just focus on your business. Let's make sure that we build this South Africa together. So, end of this session now. Please network. God bless you.